What's up, guys? Golden Knight here. Every artist starts from the exact same place, staring at a blank canvas that almost seems to stare back. It's a strange mix of excitement and insecurity. But you feel that burning desire to create something amazing, something that makes you think, damn, I made this. So, you muster up the courage and begin. But once you finish, the drawing ends up in that frustrating state of, I don't like it, but I don't know what to fix. And then, as if that weren't enough, you open your social media and see mind-blowing work from other artists. That's when the doubt kicks in. Am I really cut out for this? Will I ever reach that level? If you've ever felt this way, don't worry. The truth is, the path to improving your drawing skills is much clearer than it seems. It's not magic, it's not a hidden talent, and it's definitely not luck. It's a process. And that's the goal today, to take that process and make it more conscious, faster, and less painful. These are 10 tips that will truly change the way you draw, and more importantly, the way you relate to your own artistic growth. If you apply these consistently, it'll feel like magic. By the way, I have to say, I've been taking the art school for digital artists by Mark Brunette, and honestly, I've never learned so much in such a short time. It's a super complete course, like a condensed art school, focused only on what really matters. Perspective, anatomy, composition, all explained really well. If you want to level up fast, this is the way. Check the first link in the description. Totally worth it. Draw every day, even if it's just a little. This might sound too simple, which is why many people underestimate it. But drawing every day is, without exaggeration, the best thing you can do to boost your artistic growth. Your brain learns through repetition. Every time you draw, even for just 5 or 10 minutes, you're training coordination, observation, visual memory, and decision-making. Many people don't improve because they think it's only worth drawing when they have time, inspiration, and energy to create something beautiful. The problem is that ideal scenario rarely happens in real life. But when you change the rules and commit to drawing every day, even something simple, you start to see progress quickly. Think of drawing like a sport. If you only train once a week, you probably won't improve much, or if you do, it'll be slow. But if you train several times a week, or every day, your body responds faster. Drawing is the same. Your lines begin to flow better, the mental load to solve difficult problems gets lighter. And most importantly, drawing becomes a habit. It stops being a rare event and becomes part of your routine, like brushing your teeth or checking your phone. So, if you take just one thing from this point, let it be this. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Draw today. A little. Then tomorrow. And the next day. The silent accumulation of those days is what builds the overnight results others will notice. Study fundamentals, not just styles. This is where a lot of people get lost. It's very tempting to look at an amazing artist, fall in love with their style, and try to replicate that look. The problem is, when you skip straight to style without understanding the fundamentals behind it, you become dependent on specific references, pre-made poses, formulas that only work in certain contexts. And when you try to create something new, you freeze. Fundamentals are like the grammar of drawing. They explain why something works, or doesn't, visually. Why that arm looks weird, why the character seems crooked, why the scene lacks depth. At first, studying fundamentals can feel boring and overly technical. That's normal. But the shift happens when you realize that each of those studies solves real problems in your drawings. Suddenly, your art becomes more solid. Another key point, fundamentals don't trap you in realism, as many people think. An artist who understands fundamentals can freely exaggerate proportions and push perspective, without breaking the drawing. The secret here is balance. Don't abandon your personal drawings just to study, and don't ignore fundamentals in the name of fun. Mix both. Study a bit and apply it right away. Learn something new about lighting? Test it on a character. Study basic perspective? Use it in a simple background. This way, the knowledge sticks much more easily. References are not cheating. There's a widespread myth in the art world that using references is a sign of weakness, as if a true artist should create everything from imagination. It sounds poetic, but it's far from reality. Human memory is flawed, limited, and full of distortions. We think we remember how a body looks in a certain pose, how light hits a face, how fabric folds, until we try to draw it. That's where references come in, not to limit creativity, but to expand your accuracy and visual library. Using references trains your eye. You learn to spot details that you would have missed if you relied only on memory. All of that feeds your internal bank of visual information. The more consciously you observe, the more raw material you have to create later, even from imagination. It's also important to know the difference between copying and studying. Copying is mindlessly reproducing without thinking. Studying is observing with intent. It's asking, why does that pose work? Where is the weight of the body? How does the light define the volume? Over time, your style will merge with what you absorb. Another powerful aspect of using references, they unlock ideas. Sometimes you sit down to draw but don't really know what to create. Then you open an image bank, a book, or just look around, and new possibilities appear. An interesting expression, an unexpected color combination, a unique composition. Great artists always used references. Classical painters, modern illustrators, animators, concept artists. The difference isn't whether they use them, it's how they use them. The more consciously you approach this, the faster your evolution will be. Don't wait for inspiration, create opportunities. Inspiration is wonderful when it shows up. The problem is that it's unpredictable, unstable, and doesn't care about your desire to improve. If you only draw when you feel inspired, you put your growth in the hands of something you can't control. Days, or weeks, go by with no drawing, and the frustration only grows. The turning point comes when you realize that, in drawing, as with any skill, action comes before motivation, not the other way around. How many times have you started drawing without much excitement and halfway through found yourself engaged, testing ideas, and even surprising yourself? That happens because drawing creates inspiration. One line leads to another, a mistake becomes a creative solution, a detail sparks a new idea. Waiting to be inspired before starting is like waiting to be fit before going to the gym. It makes no sense. Creating opportunities means setting up an environment that makes starting easier. Leave your sketchbook open, your tablet charged, your software ready. Reduce as much friction as possible between you and drawing. Often, the biggest obstacle isn't talent. It's just the initial resistance to starting. Once you overcome that, things flow more naturally. Also, redefine what you expect from a drawing session. Not every day will produce something amazing, and that's okay. Some days are just warm-up, practice, or messy sketches. Others will be more productive. When you accept this, the emotional pressure drops. You stop demanding instant results and start valuing the process. And it's precisely in that lighter mindset that good ideas show up more often. The more you show up to draw, even without inspiration, the more chances you give for creativity to happen. And over time, you'll notice that inspiration shows up more often, because you stopped depending on it. Study artists you admire, but with an analytical eye. Admiring other artists is natural and healthy. The problem starts when that admiration turns into mere comparison or passive consumption. You look at the drawing, think, this is amazing, and scroll to the next post. In this process, you get emotionally inspired but learn very little technically. You need to change the way you observe and start analyzing the work of the artists you admire. Looking analytically means going beyond, I liked it, or I didn't like it. You have to ask why. Why does this drawing stand out? What's going on with the composition? Where's the focal point? How do the colors guide the viewer's eye? What kind of contrast was used? When you start asking these questions, your brain enters active learning mode. Even without realizing it, you begin absorbing visual solutions that you can apply later. A great exercise is to mentally reconstruct the artist's process. Imagine where they started, what decisions they had to make, what was simplified and what was detailed. This trains your visual reasoning and brings you closer to the thinking behind the final result. It's not about copying the whole drawing, but understanding the choices. Sometimes a tiny detail, like how they simplify a hand or suggest light with minimal shading, is more valuable than the entire piece. It's also important to choose carefully who you study. Just because an artist is popular on social media doesn't mean they're technically solid. Instead of following dozens of random artists, go deep into a few. Look at several works by the same person. Notice patterns, recurring decisions, things that repeat. This helps you understand style as the result of consistent choices, not something magical. Over time, you'll start making similar choices, but in your own way. Learn to accept your mistakes and use them to your advantage. Error is a scary word, especially when you care deeply about what you're doing. In drawing, mistakes often come with frustration, anger, and the immediate urge to erase everything or quit. But the truth is, a mistake isn't a sign of failure, it's proof you're attempting something you haven't mastered yet. And that's exactly where growth happens. Every artist you admire has made mistakes, lots of them. The difference is that at some point, they stopped treating mistakes like enemies and started treating them like information. A drawing that didn't work is full of clues. Did something look off in the proportions? Great, that reveals a specific weakness. Did the lighting feel unrealistic? Perfect, now you know what to study. When you react with anger and erase everything, you lose the opportunity to learn. But when you observe with curiosity, even if it stings a bit, you turn frustration into progress. Many artists say their biggest leaps in skill came right after a drawing they hated. Mistakes force you to clearly see your current limits. There's also an emotional aspect here. Accepting mistakes reduces the fear of starting. You allow yourself to try bolder poses, difficult angles, and different ideas. And the more you take risks, the more you learn. Growth accelerates precisely because you step out of your comfort zone. Saving your bad drawings is one of the most powerful habits you can develop. They are honest records of your journey. Going back to them months later and realizing how far you've come is solid proof that the process works. In the end, a mistake isn't the opposite of a success, it's an essential part of it. Challenge yourself with new things. It's natural to seek comfort in what you already know how to do. If you draw faces well, you'll end up drawing lots of faces. If you're good at front-facing characters, you'll repeat that angle over and over. The problem is, growth slows down when you keep going in circles inside your comfort zone. Your drawing becomes automatic, predictable, maybe even nice, but stagnant. Real progress comes when you deliberately step into unfamiliar territory. Challenging yourself doesn't mean attempting something huge or impossible. Sometimes it's just changing one element. If you always draw characters, try a simple background. If you always draw from the front, test a top-down or bottom-up angle. If you only work digitally, spend a few days with paper and pencil. These small changes force your brain to think differently and solve new problems. That's where new connections are made. At first, discomfort shows up. Your drawing might look weird, ugly, or wrong. You might even feel like, I used to be better before. But that's a misleading feeling. What's really happening is that you've increased the difficulty level. You left something you had mastered and entered a new space. It's like being a runner and suddenly jumping into a swimming pool. You'll swallow some water, but you're becoming more complete. Every new challenge expands your repertoire. Even if you later go back to the type of drawing you love most, you'll come back different, with more tools, more control, and more awareness. Things you learned in a background study, for instance, will start to show up in your characters. Your drawing gains depth, even if you don't notice where it came from. Challenging yourself also builds confidence. Not empty confidence like, I'm good at this, but real confidence, the kind that comes from knowing you can learn new things. You start trusting the process more than the immediate result. And that completely changes your relationship with art. Understand the power of color. A lot of people treat color as a final detail, almost like decoration. First they draw, then they paint over it with colors that seem to look nice together. The problem is, color is not just aesthetic. Color is a language. It communicates emotion, atmosphere, depth, even narrative. When you begin to understand this, your drawings level up, even if your line work is still simple. Colors have weight, temperature, and contrast. A scene with warm tones conveys a totally different mood from one dominated by cool blues and greens. A high-contrast character grabs attention right away, while similar tones create something more subdued and introspective. When you learn the basics of color theory, you stop guessing and start making intentional choices. Every decision starts to have a reason. Another key point, color helps structure your drawing. It can separate layers, suggest depth, guide the viewer's eye. Even if we don't realize it, our eyes follow contrasts in value and saturation. An artist who understands this can highlight what matters and soften what doesn't. The result is an image that's clearer, more readable, and much more striking. And the best part? You don't need to master every complex theory at once. Just observing already makes a huge difference. Notice how movies use limited palettes to create atmosphere. Look at illustrations you like and pay attention to how a few well-chosen colors say more than a whole rainbow. Little by little, you'll start to feel when something works or not, and that instinct is trainable. Show your work, even if it's not perfect yet. There's an imaginary moment many people wait for, the day their drawing will finally be good enough to share. The problem is, that day never comes. The more you improve, the sharper your eye becomes, and the more flaws you begin to see in your own work. If you tie the act of sharing your art to perfection, you might end up hiding it forever. Showing your work isn't about seeking approval. It's about creating dialogue. When you share, you get different perspectives. Sometimes a simple comment points out something you'd never noticed. Other times, someone connects with what you created in a way you didn't expect. That feedback fuels your process and pulls you out of creative isolation, which is one of the biggest enemies of artistic growth. Of course, fear of judgment exists. Everyone feels it. But that fear fades with gradual exposure. The more you show your work, the less power each opinion holds. You get better at separating constructive critique from noise. You learn to filter, absorb what helps, and let go of what doesn't. This kind of maturity only comes from the experience of putting yourself out there. Another important point, sharing creates accountability. When you post your drawings, join challenges, or even show friends, you create a sense of continuity. You feel more motivated to draw again, to improve, to try something new. That keeps you moving. And there's something even more powerful. Your work, even imperfect, can inspire someone who's a few steps behind you. You might think you're not good enough, but to someone else, your art is a huge encouragement. Sharing your process, your attempts, your mistakes, it humanizes art and creates real connections. Develop your artistic identity. A lot of people are obsessed with finding a style, as if artistic identity were some hidden treasure you suddenly discover. But the truth is much less dramatic and much more peaceful. Your longed-for style is simply a result. It naturally emerges from your choices, your studies, your references, and most of all, your life experiences. In the beginning, it's normal for your drawings to look like a mix of everything you enjoy. A bit from one artist, a bit from another, clear influences here and there. That's not a lack of originality, it's learning. That's how everyone starts. Over time, some things stick, others fall away. You realize you're drawn to certain themes, certain colors, certain types of characters, or visual storytelling. These preferences repeat themselves, almost without you noticing. That's when identity begins to take shape. Another key point, your identity isn't just in your line work. It's in the stories you want to tell, the feelings you like to evoke, the topics that move you. Two artists can draw technically well but evoke completely different emotions in the viewer. That difference comes from worldview, not just technique. The more honest you are about what you like and feel, the more authentic your art becomes. Identity also strengthens when you stop constantly comparing yourself to others. Excessive comparison dilutes your voice because it makes you try to fit into molds that aren't yours. When you trust the process and keep drawing, studying, and experimenting, your art begins to align with who you are. And that takes time, and that's okay. This is not a race. If you truly want to move beyond the beginner level and evolve consistently, this is the path. Start today. One drawing at a time. Growth doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen. If this video helped you in any way, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next ones. Thanks so much for watching all the way through. Don't forget to take a look at the description. There are several important links there that can help you even more. See you in the next video.